It was a sticky June night in Washington, D.C., 1972. The Watergate office complex stood quiet under the glow of street lamps, just another sleek building full of lawyers, lobbyists, and secrets. Inside the Democratic National Committee headquarters on the 6th floor, a security guard named Frank Wills noticed a piece of tape holding a door lock open. He peeled it off, thinking it was a mistake. Minutes later, he came back. The tape was there again. Heart pounding, he called the police. At 2:30 a.m., 5 men in business suits were caught red-handed with cameras, bugging devices, and thousands of dollars in crisp new bills. They weren't ordinary burglars. They were operatives tied straight to the White House. What happened next would rip open the soul of American democracy and force every citizen to ask the same terrifying question: how far would the most powerful men in the country go to protect their secrets? The FBI arrived within hours. Agents stared at the scene and knew immediately this was no ordinary break-in. The burglars carried notebooks with White House phone numbers scribbled inside. One had a check for $25,000 made out to the president's re-election committee. Another had a key to a secret safe in the executive office building. The lead investigator, a seasoned agent named Charles Bates, felt his stomach drop. This wasn't about stealing secrets from Democrats. This was about the President of the United States. Word raced up the chain. Within days, FBI Director L. Patrick Gray was on the phone with the White House. President Richard Nixon's closest advisors, men like H.R. Haldeman and John Ehrlichman, began making quiet calls. They wanted the investigation shut down fast. The cover-up had already begun. But the FBI refused to back off. Deep inside the Bureau, a quiet rebellion was stirring. Associate Director Mark Felt, known to history only as Deep Throat, watched in horror as political pressure mounted from the highest levels. He began meeting in secret with a young Washington Post reporter named Bob Woodward. In darkened parking garages, under the cover of night, Felt whispered the truth, followed the money. He revealed that the break-in was just the tip of a massive iceberg of illegal wiretaps, dirty tricks, and a secret White House unit called the Plumbers, created to stop leaks at any cost. Every lead the FBI chased led back to the Oval Office. The burglars were financed by Nixon's committee to re-elect the president, CREEP. The money trail showed hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled through secret bank accounts in Mexico. FBI agents worked around the clock, interviewing witnesses who suddenly developed amnesia or changed their stories after mysterious phone calls. One agent later said it felt like investigating a crime while the criminals were sitting in the room next door telling you what to do. The tension inside the Bureau was unbearable. Agents who had sworn an oath to uphold the law now found themselves staring down the most powerful office in the world. When the White House tried to block the FBI from interviewing key witnesses, Felt leaked more. When Nixon's men pressured Director Gray to destroy documents, the leaks grew louder. The president himself, on secret Oval Office tapes, could be heard ordering his aides to use the CIA to shut down the FBI investigation. "Tell them it's a national security matter," Nixon said. "Play it tough." America was on the edge of a constitutional cliff. If the cover-up succeeded, the rule of law would crumble. If the truth came out, the president who had promised law and order would be exposed as the man who broke every rule to stay in power. Ordinary citizens, still reeling from Vietnam and the assassinations of the 1960s, watched their faith in government crack wide open. Families gathered around television sets, whispering, "Is this really happening in America?" The stakes climbed higher every week. In October 1972, Woodward and Bernstein published a bombshell story linking the break-in directly to Nixon's re-election committee. The White House called it a witch hunt. They smeared the reporters, pressured the owners of the Post, and even suggested the FBI was out of control. Behind closed doors, Nixon's inner circle discussed using the IRS to audit journalists and using the Justice Department to intimidate witnesses. One advisor joked darkly that they could turn off the spigot of leaks by any means necessary. But the FBI kept digging. Agents uncovered the existence of a secret enemies list, hundreds of Americans targeted for harassment simply for opposing the president. They found evidence of illegal wiretaps on journalists and even on Nixon's own staff. Every new discovery brought fresh threats of interference. When Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox was appointed, the White House tried to limit what he could see. When the Senate Watergate Committee began hearings, Nixon's lawyers fought every subpoena. The American people felt the weight of it all. Veterans who had fought for democracy in Europe and Asia now wondered if the battle had come home. Young people who had marched against the war marched again, this time demanding the truth. Housewives in Ohio, factory workers in Michigan, teachers in California, They all watched the nightly news and asked the same heartbreaking question. If the president can break the law and get away with it, what happens to the rest of us? By the spring of 1973, the cover-up was cracking under its own weight. One of the burglars, James McCord, wrote a letter to the judge saying he had been pressured to stay silent. More leaks poured out. More tapes were discovered. The Saturday Night Massacre, when Nixon tried to fire the special prosecutor and 2 top Justice Department officials resigned in protest, turned the scandal into a full-blown constitutional crisis. The nation held its breath as impeachment talk filled the air. Yet even then, the full truth remained hidden. The FBI agents who had risked their careers knew they were up against something bigger than one president. They were fighting for the idea that no one, not even the man in the White House, was above the law. Their quiet courage in the face of political interference became the thin blue line protecting American democracy. The scandal that began with 5 men in business suits and a piece of tape on a door lock had grown into the greatest threat to the Republic since the Civil War. Political interference had tried to bury the truth. Hidden decisions in the Oval Office had nearly succeeded, but the FBI, the press, and ultimately the American people refused to let the cover-up win. In the end, the system bent almost to the breaking point, but it did not snap. The question that still echoes across the decades is this: when the most powerful men in the country decide the rules no longer apply to them, who will stand up and say no? America did, and that is why even after Watergate tore the nation apart, the dream of a government by and for the people somehow survived. But the scars remain, and the warning is clear: democracy is never more than one cover-up away from collapse.